Highway 101, Pacific Northwest. People think the Pacific Northwest is all postcards. Fog rolling over evergreens, coffee shops, and friendly hikers with dogs named Moose. That's the brochure. The real thing? It's a wall, a wet green wall that swallows sound. I was 2 hours into the drive when the signal died. 1 bar to nothing. Like the forest reached out and pinched the connection between me and the rest of the country. The dash clock still ticked, the engine still hummed, but my phone turned into a shiny little lie. I didn't panic. I used to do comms for the Army. You learn early that no signal isn't a crisis. It's a condition, a fact of life, like rain. And there was plenty of rain. It wasn't pouring, not dramatic like in movies. It was the kind that doesn't stop long enough for you to call it weather. It just exists. A fine, persistent mist that paints everything the same dull shade of cold. My name's Daniel Cross. I'm 38. I take contracts nobody wants, and I fix the invisible stuff people only notice when it stops working. Repeaters, satellite links, emergency radios, backhaul. The boring veins of the world. This job was supposed to be boring. Replace a failing relay unit deep inside a national park. Bring the system back online, file the report, get paid, head home. The email from the agency had been light on details and heavy on urgency. A short paragraph, a few coordinates, and 1 line that stuck in my mind like a burr under a sock. Ranger communications compromised. Proceed with caution. Proceed with caution is what people say when they don't want to write the real sentence. The real sentence is usually, something's wrong and we don't know what. The paved road gave up without warning. 1 minute I had lane markings and the next I was on packed gravel, the kind that pops under your tires like knuckles. Trees tightened around the path, tall and straight, so dense they blurred together. The sky above was a strip of gray the width of a ribbon. Then, the first sign showed up. Not the official welcome to kind. This was a piece of plywood nailed to a post, hand-painted letters, old and uneven, like the person who made it was angry or in a hurry. No service beyond this point. Under it, in smaller letters, a newer edition. If you hear your name, don't answer. I actually laughed when I saw it. A short, surprised bark that turned into a quiet exhale. It had to be a joke. Rangers messing with tourists, a local prank. Something to keep the weekend crowd from wandering into restricted areas and needing rescue at midnight. Still, the humor didn't land right. I didn't like the way the words sat on my chest. If you hear your name, don't answer. A don't answer implies there's something calling. And people don't put up warning signs for things that aren't a problem. I rolled past it, windshield wipers ticking like an old metronome, and felt the road fall away behind me. The further I drove, the less I trusted my own sense of distance. The trees made everything feel closer than it was, like the forest was leaning in. I checked my GPS. The arrow moved. The map refreshed in jerky chunks. But I had no data, no live anything, just cached tiles and an optimistic little blue dot pretending it knew where it was going. I had a paper printout too. Old school. The kind of thing you keep when you've learned that batteries die and screens crack and the woods don't care. The coordinates they gave me were in a place labeled with 1 word, backcountry. That's ranger speak for the part where you're on your own. The Cedar Ridge outpost looked like it had been built from the leftovers of other buildings. 2 weathered cabins, a shed, a radio tower with rust scars, and a single flagpole. No visitors, no tour buses, no gift shop, just an American flag hanging limp in damp air. A pickup truck sat out front with mud caked halfway up the doors. In the back was a stack of orange cones and a coil of thick rope, the kind you use to pull things out of ditches. I killed the engine and the silence rushed in like water filling a hole. No birds, no insects, no wind in the branches, just My own boots on gravel. Inside the main cabin, the air smelled like wet wool and black coffee. A woman behind the desk looked up from a clipboard. She had that ranger posture, straight spine, steady eyes, someone who's used to being the adult in a room full of chaos. Her name tag read, Whitmore. "Daniel Cross," she said. "Yeah," I replied. "You're Sarah." She nodded once, like confirming a suspicion. "You're early." I didn't stop. "That's not typical." Her tone made it clear she didn't mean it as praise. I shrugged. "You wanted the relay fixed. I'm here." She set the clipboard down and studied me like I was a piece of equipment she wasn't sure she trusted. "Any issues getting in?" "No, just the usual. No service. Roads are a mess." Her eyes flicked toward the window, toward the tree line, like she was checking whether something might be standing there listening. Then she said, casually, like it didn't matter, "You saw the sign. The one about not answering if you hear your name." Her mouth tightened at one corner. "Yeah." "Cute." She didn't smile. "People get turned around out there," she said. "They panic. They hear things, echoes, wind, animals. They start making bad decisions. We try to keep them from making worse ones." That explanation was clean and reasonable. Too clean. Like it was rehearsed. She reached under the desk and slid a folder toward me. Inside was a topographic map, laminated, with a red circle drawn around a section of forest. Next to it was a set of handwritten notes, all caps, aggressive pen strokes. "Relay Unit 3. Be last contact, 9 days ago. Ranger Hale, missing area restricted, no hikers." I tapped the last name with my finger. "Hale," Whitmore's jaw flexed. "Michael Hale," she said, "one of ours." "Missing? We're calling it unaccounted for until we find—" She stopped herself, swallowed the rest of the sentence. "Until we find him." My stomach made a slow, uncomfortable drop. I'd done enough jobs in enough remote places to know the difference between a routine repair and a repair someone's desperate to attach to something else. This wasn't just about a relay. This was about a person who vanished in the same place I was being sent. "Why didn't you tell me this in the email?" I asked. Whitmore's eyes didn't leave mine. "Would you have come?" "Fair point. I hated that." "Tell me what happened," I said. She leaned back slightly and chose her words the way people do when they're trying not to say too much. "Hale checked the unit 9 days ago. He reported interference, static, bursts. He said he was going to walk the line, check for damage, wildlife. Maybe a fallen tree took the antenna, standard stuff. And then he stopped answering." I ran a thumb along the edge of the folder. "Search teams? We've run grid sweeps, dogs, drones when weather allows. Nothing. No prints, no gear, no body." No body? Those two words hang in the air like a smell. Whitmore stood, went to a metal cabinet, and pulled out a small zippered pouch. She set it on the desk. "This was found 2 miles from the relay site," she said. I opened it. Inside was a field notebook, swollen from moisture but still intact. The cover was stained, the pages warped. The elastic strap was torn like someone had yanked it hard. On the inside cover, in block letters, Michael Hale. Under that, a smaller line. "If you find this, do not go in after me." I looked up. Whitmore was watching my face like she was reading a monitor. "You said no gear," I said. "We didn't find his pack or his radio," she replied. "We found that." "Where exactly?" She pointed at the map. Her finger hovered just outside the red circle. "Right here," she said, "on the edge." "The edge of what?" Whitmore's finger didn't move. She didn't say the word zone, but the silence did. Whitmore walked me through the equipment list like this was still a normal day. Spare battery packs, handheld radio, signal analyzer, a flare kit, a bare canister, basic med supplies. Then she added one thing that didn't fit: a second radio. Older model, heavy, scratched, duct tape on the battery cover. "This one stays on," she said, "always." "What frequency?" She wrote it down. A frequency I hadn't seen used in years. "You're serious." She met my eyes again. "If you lose contact on the park band, you switch to that." "Who's on the other end?" Whitmore hesitated, then, quietly, "Dispatch. Sometimes." Sometimes. That word again. The kind of word you use when you don't want to admit you're not in control. I zipped the pouch with Hale's notebook and set it carefully in my bag. "So I go in," I said. "I fix the relay. I come out." Whitmore nodded. "And if I don't?" Her face didn't change, but her voice got a shade flatter. "Then we'll do what we did for Hale. Search teams, dogs, drones, nothing." I stood there with the weight of that notebook in my pack and realized something I didn't like at all. This job didn't have a normal ending. It had two endings. One where I drove out before dark and wrote a boring report, and one where my name ended up on the inside cover of a wet notebook. Whitmore handed me the keys to an old park ATV. "Trail starts behind the shed," she said. "You follow it until the marker posts end. After that, it's on you." I took the keys. My hand was steady, but my thoughts weren't. I nodded once, like I was agreeing to a contract I hadn't fully read. As I stepped outside, the forest greeted me the same way it had when I arrived, with that dead, watchful silence. And for the first time all day, I had a very clear, very unwanted thought. What if the sign wasn't a joke? The ATV rattled like it hated being awake. The trail wasn't really a trail, more like an old scar in the forest that never healed right. Mud packed hard as concrete, deep ruts filled with brown water, branches clawing at my sleeves when I leaned too far to either side. I checked my watch. 12:54 p.m. Plenty of daylight. No reason to rush. That's what I told myself. The forest didn't change much at first. Same endless wall of firs and cedars, same low fog threading between trunks. But the further I went, the more the space between sounds stretched out. The engine noise felt wrong, like it didn't belong here, like it was violating some unspoken rule. I killed the throttle for a second just to listen. Nothing. No birds flushing, no insects whining, not even the wind. Silence that wasn't peaceful. Silence that felt intentional. I rolled again. The GPS blinked, hesitated, then jumped a few yards east like it had tripped. I tapped the screen. The blue dot steadied, but the compass needle spun once, slow and lazy, before settling. I'd seen that before, usually near heavy metal, old mining sites, buried junk, or interference. The marker posts ended without ceremony. No sign, no warning, just nothing. One moment there was a faded yellow post with a reflective strip. The next, there was only forest pressing in on both sides, branches low and wet, ground uneven and soft like it hadn't been walked on in a long time. I stopped the ATV and shut it down. The quiet slammed back into place. I pulled the map from my pack and laid it across the seat. According to the coordinates, the relay was less than half a mile north-northeast. Straight shot, but through terrain the map politely described as uneven. That was cartographer speak for, "You're gonna hate this." I strapped the pack tight, checked the radio, park frequency, static, faint but present, backup radio, dead air. I hesitated, then clipped both to my vest. Before stepping off the trail, I did something I hadn't planned on. I looked back. The ATV sat alone, already half swallowed by mist and shadow, like it had been abandoned there for years instead of minutes. I marked the spot mentally. A habit drilled in back when getting lost meant more than embarrassment. Then I stepped into the trees. Moving off-trail changes everything. Your pace slows, your attention narrows, every step becomes a decision. The forest floor was thick with needles and rot, soft enough to muffle my boots completely. I could have been barefoot for all the sound I made. That should have bothered me more than it did. The deeper I went, the more I felt insulated, like the world outside the trees had been wrapped in plastic and sealed off. I checked the radio again. Cedar Ridge, this is Cross, radio check. Static, not even the courtesy of a hiss. I switched to the older unit Whitmore gave me, held the transmit button. Dispatch, this is Cross. Do you read? For a second, nothing happened. Then a click. Not static. A click, like someone picking up on the other end. Cross, a voice said, male, calm, flat. Yeah, I replied, surprised despite myself. I've got you. What's your signal strength? A pause, longer than it needed to be. Say again, the voice said. That wasn't right. I checked the frequency. Same channel, same settings. I asked for your signal strength, I said. You sound distant. Another pause. Then, you're closer than you think. My hand tightened around the radio. That's not an answer, I said. The channel went dead. No sign-off, no static, just gone. I stood there for a full 10 seconds, listening to my own breathing, waiting for the familiar spike of adrenaline. It never came. What I felt instead was colder, curiosity. I smelled it before I saw it. Burnt plastic, ozone. The clearing opened up suddenly, like someone had carved a chunk out of the forest and forgot to smooth the edges. In the center stood the relay tower steel lattice, about 40 feet high, braced with cables that hummed faintly when the air shifted. The unit at the base was open, panel torn clean off, wires exposed, insulation blackened. This wasn't weather damage. This was violent. I crouched and ran a hand near the housing, not touching. Still warm. Recent. Too recent. I set my pack down and started a slow circle, eyes scanning the ground. Muddy patches, broken ferns, scuffed earth, boot prints, one set clear as day, government issue, Vibram sole, Ranger boots. They moved erratically, tight loops, stops, starts, not a straight walk. Someone pacing, someone waiting. I followed the tracks to the north edge of the clearing, where they stopped abruptly. No fade out, no gradual loss, just gone. Like the ground decided it didn't want to remember them anymore. That was when I noticed the radio, half buried in leaves. Antenna snapped, mud packed into the speaker grill. I picked it up carefully. The label on the back was scratched but readable. Hail M. I didn't need to check the notebook to know who it belonged to. I tried the power switch. Nothing. Dead. I swallowed and glanced back at the relay tower, suddenly aware of how exposed the clearing was. The trees around it stood too straight, too evenly spaced, like an audience. I forced myself to breathe slow. Find the fault, fix the problem, stick to the job. That's how you keep panic from getting a foothold. I opened the analyzer and connected it to the relay. The readings made no sense. Signal loss spiked and dipped in irregular waves, like something was passing through the field, not blocking it, not boosting it, just disturbing it. Interference without a source. I frowned and adjusted the gain. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, soft, careful, behind me. I turned fast, heart slamming once hard. Hello? I called. Nothing. The clearing was empty. No movement, no rustle, no snapped twigs. Just the tower creaking faintly overhead. I stood there, muscles tight, scanning the tree line. Then I realized something worse. The footsteps had stopped when I turned, like whatever made them didn't want to be seen. I was packing up when I saw the notebook. It was wedged under a fallen branch, tucked just out of sight, like someone had placed it there on purpose. Not dropped, not lost, hidden. The cover was the same as the one Whitmore showed me. Same stain, same torn elastic. I froze. Slowly, I reached into my pack and pulled out the notebook she gave me. Held them side by side. Identical. My mouth went dry. I opened the one from my pack. Blank. Every page clean. Untouched. I opened the one from the ground. Writing. dense, jagged, pressed hard into the paper. The first entry was dated, Day 1. Below it, in Michael Hale's handwriting, "The relay isn't broken, it's reacting." I didn't read any further, not yet, because right then my radio crackled, not static, a voice, low, close, too close. "Daniel," it said, not over the radio, behind me. I didn't turn around. That wasn't courage. That was training. You don't spin unless you know what you're spinning toward. You don't give something the satisfaction of watching your fear arrive early. "Say that again," I said, forcing my voice to stay level. Silence, not the natural kind, the kind that presses in, heavy like it's waiting for a response. I counted in my head, 1, 2, 3. Nothing. When I finally turned, the clearing was exactly the same as it had been seconds earlier. Tower, trees, gray sky leaking through the canopy, no movement, no presence, but the air felt handled, like someone had just been there and left fingerprints on it. I took 2 slow steps back, eyes never leaving the tree line, and knelt to pick up the second notebook. The real one. The one that had been written in. The blank copy stayed in my pack. I didn't throw it away, didn't question it. Some part of me understood, without words, that it mattered. I didn't like that part of me. I didn't want to read the notebook in the clearing. That place felt exposed, not just physically, conceptually, like the wrong thoughts might echo louder there. I moved south until the terrain dipped and the trees closed ranks. Set up a quick, ugly camp, no fire, no noise, just a tarp, a ration bar, and enough space to sit with my back against a trunk. I checked the time again, 3:11 p.m., plenty of daylight left. I told myself I'd read one entry, just one, context before dark. The notebook felt heavier than paper should. I opened it. Michael Hale, Field Notes. Day 1. The relay isn't broken, it's reacting. I checked the unit 3 times. No mechanical failure, no storm damage, no animal interference. The signal fluctuations aren't random. They follow a pattern. It responds when I'm close. I swallowed. That lined up too neatly with my own readings. I turned the page. Day 2. I walked the perimeter today. The area isn't marked on official maps, but the forest changes when you cross into it. Sound drops first, then distance. Everything feels closer than it should be. Dispatch says it's terrain compression. I've hiked this park for 11 years. Terrain doesn't do this. I glanced up, scanning my surroundings. Same dead quiet. Same sense that the space around me wasn't behaving. Day 3. I think we've been wrong about our role here. We don't patrol this area. We contain it. My jaw tightened. Contain implies protocol, awareness, intent, not an accident. I flipped another page. Day 4. I heard my name today. Not on the radio, not echoing. It used my voice. My fingers dug into the paper. I remembered the sign at the boundary. If you hear your name, don't answer. That sign hadn't been for tourists. It had been for rangers. A sound pulled me out of the notebook, a soft, distant crack, like a branch snapping under careful weight. I closed the book and held still. No follow-up sound, no rush, no animal crash through brush. Whatever made that noise knew how to move without advertising it. I waited a full minute before opening the notebook again. Day 5. It doesn't approach directly. It circles. When I stop moving, it stops. When I write, it gets closer. My pulse picked up. That sentence landed heavier than the others. When I write, it gets closer. I looked at my hands, at the notebook resting on my knees, at the pen clipped to the binding. A thought crept in, uninvited and sharp. What if reading counts? The light shifted, not dramatically, just enough to notice. Shadows stretched wrong, not longer, wider, like the forest was smearing them sideways. I forced myself to stay seated. Don't escalate. Don't react. That rule had kept me alive before. I turned the page. Day 6. I tried leaving today. I walked south until my compass spun. I walked east until the trees repeated. I walked west until I found my own boot prints coming toward me. North is the only direction that still works. I checked my compass. The needle trembled, not spinning, just indecisive. I'd been planning to head back south before nightfall. That plan quietly died. Day 7. I told Whitmore everything. She didn't argue. She didn't look surprised. She asked me to stay. A cold line formed between my shoulders. Whitmore, calm, measured, careful with her words. "How long have you known?" I muttered, not sure who I was talking to. The forest didn't answer. The radio crackled. I flinched despite myself. Park frequency this time. "Cross," Whitmore's voice said, clear, controlled. "Status check." I pressed the transmit button. "I'm at the relay. Units damaged. Interference source unknown." A pause. "Did you find anything else?" she asked. The question was too precise. I looked at the notebook. "No," I said. Another pause. Longer. "Okay," Whitmore replied. "Daylight's fading. Recommend you set camp and move at first light." "You want me to stay overnight?" I asked. Silence. Then, "Yes." The word echoed in my head. I glanced at the tree line. "I'm not sure that's a good idea." "Neither are we," Whitmore said quietly. "But leaving after dark is worse." That was the closest she'd come to honesty. The channel went dead. I read the last entry as the light thinned into something brittle. Day 8. It knows I'm planning to leave. It's been closer all day. It doesn't want me to go. I think the relay is a boundary marker, not a transmitter. If I cross north tonight, it will follow. If I stay, it will learn me. If someone finds this, the sentence ended mid-line. No period, no final thought, just an empty page after. I closed the notebook slowly. The forest around me felt tighter now, like the space between trees had subtly shrunk. I checked the time. 5:02 p.m., still daylight, but not much. That's when I heard it again. Not my voice. Not yet. A whisper, threading through the trunks, testing shapes, practicing. And for the first time since I entered the park, a thought landed fully formed and undeniable. Michael Hale hadn't disappeared. He'd made a decision. And whatever he was holding back, I was sitting right in front of it. Night doesn't fall in the forest. It leaks. One moment the world still has edges, the next they start to blur, like someone smudging a charcoal drawing with a wet thumb. Colors drain first, depth goes next, distance becomes a suggestion. I packed slowly, not because I was calm, because rushing is how you miss the thing that matters. The notebook went back into the pouch. The blank one stayed where it was. I didn't argue with that instinct anymore. I checked the compass again. The needle trembled. But when I turned north, it steadied, locked in. Michael Hale had been right. North still worked. Every step felt louder than it should have, even though I knew it wasn't. The forest absorbed sound like a sponge, leaving only the sensation of movement behind. I kept my pace even. Not fast, not slow. Predators notice irregularities. I didn't know what this thing was, but I knew enough not to look like prey. The radio on my chest crackled once. I froze. "Cross," Whitmore's voice said. "You're moving." I didn't answer right away. "How do you know that?" I asked finally. Another pause. "We can see signal displacement," she said. "You're inside the distortion field. That's not a thing." "It is here." I stepped over a fallen log, boots sinking into damp moss. "Whitmore," I said. "What is this place?" Silence. Then, carefully, "It's where the park ends." I almost laughed. "That's your answer?" "It's the only one that's true." The radio popped and went dead. I felt it before I saw anything change. Pressure. Like stepping into a room where the air's been turned up too high. My ears rang softly. Not painful. Just enough to notice. The trees ahead thinned, not into a clearing, but into something ordered. Too straight. too intentional. The compass needle shook violently, then snapped back north. Behind me, the forest made a sound, not a footstep, not a voice, a correction, like something adjusting its position to match mine. I didn't turn around. I'd made that mistake once already. The light here was wrong. It didn't fade naturally. It stalled, like dusk had gotten stuck mid-transition. I checked my watch, 6:22 p.m. The second hand was moving. Time hadn't stopped. It just didn't feel welcome. That was when the whisper came back, closer now, clearer. Daniel, my name, perfect. My voice, but cleaner, calmer, like a better version of me. I clenched my jaw and kept walking. Don't answer, don't acknowledge. Behind me, something shifted. The whisper tried again. Daniel, wait. The word wait carried weight, not urgency, expectation, like it assumed compliance. I felt a sudden sharp awareness of every memory that made me who I was. My name, my past, my voice patterns, data. It was learning. The old radio came alive without warning, not static. Applause, soft, slow, wet, hands clapping somewhere far too close. Then a voice, not Whitmore, not Hale, not mine. You're doing better than the last one. I stopped. That was a mistake. The forest leaned in. You're quieter, the voice continued. He talked too much. I turned my head just enough to see movement between the trees, not a shape, a subtraction, like part of the forest had been erased and was moving independently of the rest. My stomach dropped. You learned fast, it said. He learned slowly. Hale, I said before I could stop myself. A pause, then amusement. Yes, it replied. That was his name. The pressure in the air spiked. My radio screamed with feedback, and then silence, complete. I broke into a run. Running in the woods is a gamble, roots, drops, blind turns. I didn't care. Branches whipped my face, my lungs burned, my pack slammed against my spine. Behind me, something kept pace, not crashing, not struggling, matching perfectly. I risked a glance. I shouldn't have. There was no body, no outline, just the absence of depth where depth should have been, like looking at a hole punched through reality and realizing it was looking back. It spoke again, not behind me, inside my head. If you cross, you carry me. I stumbled, almost fell. If you stay, I finish learning you. My foot hit something solid, metal. I skidded to a stop. The relay tower, another one, older, rusted, half collapsed, a boundary marker, Hale's real post. At the base was a pack, weathered, sun-bleached, a ranger pack. I didn't have to open it to know whose it was. The whisper rose to a hum. The pressure peaked. I understood then. Hale hadn't vanished. He'd stood here. He'd held the line, and now the line was breaking. I grabbed the pack and turned north. And the forest screamed. The radio exploded with noise, voices, dozens of them, all mine, all saying my name all at once. Then, nothing, no sound, no light, no sense of direction, just the feeling of crossing something that did not want to be crossed. Subscribe. In the next part, I'll tell you what happened after the signal went dead, and why Michael Hale was never really missing.